Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Curtain. That's right, I've done it semi-consistently, almost weekly. How's it going? Welcome back to Behind the Curtain, the series where I go ahead and talk about my weeks and a running theme throughout them since the last one. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one today. The reason why I'm very motivated today, I got a lot of topics in my mind, so many that it's gonna kind of probably mesh weird in this video, but I think the topics kind of relate. But before we get into the topics, we're gonna just go ahead and go through the week basically, because it's only really been a week. But yeah, so if you didn't know, if you didn't know, you probably didn't know. In the past weekend, I was able to spend some time with some good friends, people online. We kind of met up on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in various different places, and had a really great time. I'm really glad because it'd been a while since our last kind of group meetup, and it's really nice to see a lot of those people again, even if they're people that like I haven't always been very close to, or maybe you guys don't think I'm close to based off of like the lack of like interaction time with them. But yeah, it's really special those times, especially somebody who's, as you guys know, is kind of deprived of that sort of like interaction my age. It's really nice to have those moments where like I can make everybody laugh with random humor, and not have to worry about this or that, or you know, you can kind of be completely unfiltered and not have to worry about people clipping you, they're here, there, or whatever. And it's really special to have those times, all the fun activities we did. Yeah, it was really awesome. I mean, we did so much different stuff. Laser tag, I won. I'm not. I basically won everything we did, and I realized and felt kind of bad because I feel like I'm that guy. It's like, well, he's won again, but like, I don't usually win things. I think I'm like above average-ish at quite a few things, but like I don't usually win that many things, right? I feel so. It was really cool to me to be able to kind of do physical stuff. But also then I felt like, wow, I'm a loser. I'm just winning everything. It's kind of cringe. But yeah, I'm the mini golf goat, and I'm also the laser tag goat. So we take those. I also did pretty well in the escape room, but I don't think I was the carry in the escape room. I think I did a lot. I had a lot of value, but I don't think I was like, if you had to tier list people, I think I was probably like, nah, I don't know. I don't think I was the best. But yeah. That was really special. But it was really interesting meeting up with some of the people there and kind of helped me realize like impact, right? Impact is a really interesting thing on the internet where like even being a small creator like I am, I kind of impacted a lot of people's lives, you know, whether it be a big or small way. Most of the cases will be small, but it still have. And there was this case with somebody who's been a long time kind of viewer of mine. And then we were talking about lads as a group and my videos and content and stuff like that. And we were talking about how they really envied all the videos that they saw of me and that they wanted to have a group like lads and that sort of thing. And it's really interesting. They then basically talked about how they felt bad because they didn't feel like they deserved in lads, and it's really an interesting topic. I'm not going to name them because that'd be outrageous, but it's a really interesting topic because it should not be like that, right? Like you shouldn't ever have to feel like you deserve to be somewhere. Especially speaking as somebody who struggles with that all the time. And it's really interesting to see that sort of perspective of somebody who's kind of not been raised in a sense, but like in a sense, yeah. Somebody who's basically been like sort of raised off of like my content or like brought up off of stuff I've done, and had similar thought processes to certain situations. And it was really interesting how part of that is because they've kind of been brought up watching my stuff. Kind of a reminder of like impact, right? Like I'm not, you know, sending people to Mars, but sometimes it's the small things. Maybe, you know, with these videos especially, maybe the way I kind of frame perspective and things like that, we'll very much get into that later. You know, my perspective or, you know, just like thought-provoking sort of stuff can kind of help you guys, and maybe those small little moments that you kind of got from content from me or from anybody online for that matter will help kind of inform yourself, your identity, your, you know, your kind of understanding of the world. And it was a really interesting thing. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Other than that, not really been much that happened in a week. Got some really cool event stuff coming up that got announced this week. Like really cool. There's gonna be a weekend this month that I'm doing a Saturday Sunday thingy, and it's two big boys, and it's gonna be a good time. Some fun teams, some different teams, but some fun teams. And I can't wait for that. And there's another one. I think I'm in 3 events already this month. So yeah, we're coming back into it. I don't want to get too like sucked in, but I honestly forgot I signed up for one of these. But the team is so fire that I'm like, you know what, I'm actually hyped. So we'll see. But yeah, let's get on to the topics, right? So there's a couple kind of topics that I wanted to talk about today. And the main one, as you saw by the thumbnail, if you even look at the thumbnails, is the trolley problem. You've probably heard of the trolley problem before, but if not, I'm going to explain it because I won't lie, it's really poorly named because it has nothing to do with a trolley, at least like UK terms. Like a trolley is like, you know, you go to like Tesco and you like put something in the trolley. Like that's not, it's got nothing to do with that. Anyway, the trolley problem is a very well-known, hypothetical, thought-provoking kind of morality sort of problem about where there are two tracks ahead of you. A train is on one set of tracks and it's going to like hit 5 people. And then there's another set of track with one person on it, and there's a lever in front of you that allows you to swap where the train's going, which track the train is going on. So basically, in effect, it is, do you pull a lever that stops 5 people from being hit by a train, and it's kind of dark when you deep it, but like it's supposed to be a thought-provoking hypothetical, or one person. And it's an interesting one, right? Because for the longest time, it's meant to be. I feel like it kind of got a. And I was very similar in this case. It kind of got a incorrect rep for like, oh, it's a hypothetical that has like no answer, right? Like that's why it's a good hypothetical because it's like, oh, there's arguments on both sides, blah blah blah. But actually, apparently that isn't the thought process behind it. So I'm gonna run through it. Basically, in my mind, kind of opening up, there's 3 options in this hypothetical scenario, which is what's interesting about, you know, morality and perspective and things like that. First of all, is to flick the switch. That means, you know, instead of it hitting the 5 people, it's going to hit the 1 person. You have flipped that switch. Boom. Second thing is to not flip the switch. So you decide, no, I'm not going to flip the switch. I'm going to let this happen. The third thing, and the reason why I say there's a third option, even though it technically isn't, is because the intent's much, much different, is to do nothing, right? And you're probably like, oh, hang on, you know, doing nothing is the same as not flipping the switch, which, yes, if you want to be pedantic about it, is true. But they all have different sort of thought processes, and I feel like that's kind of the important part of it. The reason why I bring this up is because this problem is, and in general why this problem is brought up, is because it is a very relevant issue that can be applied to a lot of pillars of life. There are a lot of times in life where you have a similar problem to the trolley problem. If you think back, you'll probably realize, oh, hang on a second, I've been through a problem just like this. Wow, isn't that crazy? So yeah, now the interesting thing for me is how my perspective, I've noticed, has changed. At least, I don't know if this was jokingly, but whenever I previously heard about this sort of hypothetical, I always thought, well, I'll do nothing. The reason why I do nothing is because if I do nothing, then I am not responsible. It means that, you know, it was out of my hands anyway. If I was not there, the same result would have happened. So me doing nothing changes nothing. You know, I'm not responsible because I did nothing. Which, me in hindsight, is like, wow, you are so stupid for that one. Because that is just not the way to look at it at all, in my perspective. The interesting thing I found out from like kind of researching this problem is there kind of is a right answer, or at least there's an answer that is very commonly agreed upon as the right answer. And that is, to me, obviously flicking the lever, right? Like, I don't know why you wouldn't flick the lever, at least in this hypothetical. It's 5 lives for 1. You know, the only argument kind of is the argument I made of the, you know, oh, you're not responsible if you don't do anything. But the reality is, which is what I'm getting to, you are still responsible. So it's the way that I can apply this is if you're in a situation where you know something or have the ability to do something and you choose not to do it off of the basis that, oh, well, it's the same as if you couldn't have done it in the first place. That is L. That is L mindset. And I feel like it is something I used to think was kind of more acceptable than it is. Kind of ever knowing something and then just hiding behind the fact of like, oh, I can just ignore it. You know, I can just ignore something and move on as if it never happened. You know, I can just ignore that switch, not flip it, and then it doesn't matter, right? I'm not responsible. That avoidance of responsibility because you didn't flip the switch, because you didn't, you know, do anything about it. You had the power to, but because, you know, nobody knew you had the power to, or maybe you weren't meant to have the power to, you could just avoid it. You're no longer responsible. Interesting thoughts, right? Very, very interesting thoughts. And I thought it's something that can be applied to a lot of people. You know, it can be applied to a lot of people and a lot of situations, and it's really interesting. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. I would imagine everybody's going to agree with me on the whole. You would obviously flip the switch, but that's why I present to you a second hypothetical. The second hypothetical, the more advanced version of the trolley problem I found out about yesterday, is a bit darker, a bit outrageous. But basically, there's 5 people on a track below you, like you're on a bridge above a track, and there's 5 people stuck on the track. There is, I kid you not, this is an actual hypothetical, right? There is a really overweight person to your right. You can push this person onto the tracks, and they will absorb the damage and save the 5 other people. However, they will not survive it themselves. What do you do? And it's interesting, right? Because this completely flips the hypothetical on its head. Because now you are directly responsible, right? Because you are directly pushing someone into that situation they would have not been in otherwise. So now the hypothetical has changed, and now it's like there is just no answer, right? Because you are essentially like directly taking a life for the sake of 5 other lives. And then there's an either deeper version where it's like, okay, you got 5 people that need surgery for various body parts, and then you've got 1 healthy person who could provide body parts for all those 5 people. What do? You know, do you save the 5 people by, you know, taking the 1 person? Interesting hypotheticals, little thought process, little exercises. I mean, I just wanted to kind of discuss those, mention those at least, because I thought it was interesting how there's differing, more developed versions. And I'm intrigued as to what you guys think in a sense of, like, is it the same to you? To me, it's not. At least I don't think so. In general, that, you know, obviously it's a hypothetical, it's a hard decision to make, but I feel like, at least in the first example, it's clear, right, what you should do, realistically speaking. Whereas when you get to the second and third example that I brought up, it becomes much less clear. And I feel like that's why it's really interesting. But yeah, it's a really cool hypothetical, and I'm really kind of glad I got reminded of it. And yeah, it's kind of that thing of, like, you know, can you get away without responsibility by just pretending? Which is relevant to a lot of cases in life, and it's a really interesting one. By just pretending, is everything okay? You know, if you just pretend that you couldn't have flipped that switch, does that mean you were never responsible in the first place? The answer is no. But yeah, it's a little thought thingy that I thought was a cool little thing to bring up. And then moves on to the second thing today, which kind of relates. And it relates in the case of, okay, let's say, this is still pretty dark hypotheticals if you deep it, but let's say you know the 1 person on the railroad track, and somebody else has that decision, they flick the switch, and that 1 person is hit by the train, alright, whatever. It's really dark when I say it like that. I feel like this should be a lighter way for me to say it, but you get the hypothetical, right? To you, that person has done bad. They're a bad person, right, for doing that, right? You could think that. It would make a lot of sense for you to think that. But, this is the topic that I want to bring up today. What makes that person bad? And in general, what makes a villain a villain? So, for example, this is an interesting thought that was kind of brought up with Thanos. I think I've brought this up temporarily in the past. Thanos is a character who is kind of like a villain that has his own set of morals and reasoning. He's not just evil for the sake of evil, right? But he is a villain, right? And why is he a villain? Why, in general, why is a bad person bad? What makes something bad? What makes someone bad? What makes an action bad? What makes, you know, anything bad? What makes something a villain? I want you all to stop right now. You don't all have to, but, like, I'm interested. If you could stop right now and say in the comments what you think that is. Answer the question for me. What makes something bad bad? What is it? What defines bad, right? Because I think it's an interesting one that you can quite easily kind of on the surface be like, oh, well, you know, hurting someone is, you know, that sort of thing. When actually I kind of realized, I feel like the other day, like last night, and that's kind of why I'm bringing this up today. What makes a bad person bad? It doesn't matter what they did. And it doesn't matter about their intent, which I feel like they're the 2 big answers that you probably thought of, you know, when I asked, right? You probably thought, oh, it matters what they hurt, who they hurt, what the impact was, right? It mattered the impact of what they did. That's what determines whether something is bad or good in this sense. But no, I don't think that's it. And you're probably saying, oh, it's the intent. You know, if somebody intended to hurt or if they intended to do good, that's what matters. No, that's not what determines a good or bad person or thing either. What I realized is it all comes down to perception. That's all that matters, is perception, right? It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter the impact of what happened. It doesn't matter the intent of the person. All that matters is the perception. How people choose to perceive that. That determines a good or bad person. There's the phrase that I kind of have brought up in the past, I think, like a little Facebook like meme that I saw that's meant to be like a big thought-provoking thing. It's like, you're always a villain in somebody else's story, which is interesting. But it really does drive that point home. Is, you know, somebody doing something that is bad is purely down to how the action is perceived. Because people have done bad things before in history, and they're not perceived as bad, right? So they're not bad people in their eyes. In general, you know, very relevant to a certain election that might be going on at the moment. There's people who do bad things and will be perceived as bad, but there's other people who would do what I would say is a bad thing and not be perceived as bad. You know what I mean? It's a weird one, right? But I thought it's an interesting, both the trolley problem and this, they kind of link. Interesting thought process, right? Doing bad, that isn't really a thing, right? There isn't really a... Bad people don't exist, I guess you could argue. Bad people don't exist. And bad intent, bad, like, it doesn't exist because it's all in the eyes of the beholder, right? It's all about how it's perceived, how the action itself is perceived is what matters. And in general, it kind of links to people, personalities. In reality, all that matters isn't, like, anybody's self. It's how their self is perceived. Like, my character doesn't matter to anybody else but me. All that matters is how it's perceived to everybody else, which is, it's a weird one, right? And I don't blame you if you don't, like, fully understand this, because it is a weird one. Oh, that's it? Well, I wouldn't have skipped the last level if I knew that was it. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting one. It's all about perception, right? And like I say, it's, you know, the trolley problem, it's all about how you perceive it. Everything is about, there is no right or wrong. It's all about how it's perceived, what determines whether it's right or wrong. At the end of the day, what's wrong to you might not be wrong to other people. And that is why we have a lot of disagreements in the world, right? I feel like that is a big reason. And it's an interesting one. How can you kind of navigate those situations? How can you deal with those things? The fact that everybody kind of... It's all about perception. People will choose to perceive things in a certain way, maybe because it benefits them, or because it's easier for them, which I guess benefits them, or just because that's what they truly think is the right way to look at it. What just happened? Okay. But yeah, it's an interesting one. What are your guys' thoughts on this? How have your guys' weeks been? That's kind of all I wanted to ramble on about today. It's a Friday, so it's a weird day to upload this, if it even does get uploaded today. I think it should. I think it'll get uploaded tonight, because I'll be playing Call of Duty Online. Recently, also, the Sonic game came out. Was that since the last video of this? It will have been. Sonic X Shadow Generations was awesome. I've convinced Desert to start playing and investing in Sonic games. Awesome. The story in that, phenomenal. Well, okay, maybe not phenomenal. I'm not going to go too crazy now. But it's fantastic. It was really good to see that sort of story back in a Sonic game. And, you know, with more serious themes. Really interesting sort of self-control. And, the really good line, you know, I don't really know how to explain it, but basically without, like, spoiling, but there's some really cool points in there, of kind of, like, staying true to yourself and not kind of letting bad things take a hold. And maybe I'll touch upon that greater in another video. I don't think I've done that yet, have I? I don't know. I lose track of the amount of these I've done. But yeah, what are your thoughts on perception? What are your thoughts on what makes a villain or a bad person? What makes something good? What makes something bad? What are your thoughts on the trolley problem? And how's your week been? I'm curious. Anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I was going to say, whoa, I went to the old-fashioned outro. Oh my god. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy. I really do appreciate you guys watching these videos, and I hope you get a lot of enjoyment out of them as well. Like I say, thought-provoking, interesting stuff. What are your thoughts on all the stuff that I've talked about today? And yeah, that is about it. I will see you guys on the next one. This is going to be a really sad outro because I'm in the dark. But I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.